Hello, everybody. My name is Ronnie J. Abrams, Ronald J. Abrams. Uri Gedalia is my Hebrew name. My Hebrew name means Uri means my fire. Gedalia means God is great. And the verse in the Torah, in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible, Tanakh is the Hebrew way of saying, of calling the Hebrew Bible. It's called the Tanakh. It's an acronym of three Hebrew letters, which the Taf is Torah. The Nun is Nevi'im, the prophets, and the Kaf is Ksuvim, the writing. So Tanakh basically is an acronym because the Hebrew Bible is made up of three separate sections, many books. Each section has many books. The first section has 5 books, the 5 books of Moses. That's called the Torah. The second section is called the Nevi'im, the prophets, and that has, I don't know how many books, but it has Isaiah and it starts out with the book of Joshua, the book of Kings 1, the book of Kings 2, Samuel 1, Samuel the prophet 2, Samuel the prophet 1, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu, they're called the major prophets. Not that the minor prophets have less of a level of prophecy, but the major prophets wrote more. Their writings were more numerous. There's many more chapters and verses in the major prophets, and they were earlier. So the earlier the prophets, the more powerful their level of clarity of God is. Of course, no one can see God, but they saw visions of God because God gives a prophet a vision of, sometimes they would see, and I'm just basing what I'm saying on the writings of the verses of, let's say, Jeremiah or Isaiah, where they would see God as a king sitting on his throne in heaven. God doesn't have any form. God doesn't have a physical form at all. So even a spiritual form, there is no form. God has no form. And it's forbidden to believe that God does have a form. So then the question arises, what is the prophet seeing when he sees God, the king, sitting on his throne in heaven, in the heavenly sanctuary of the palace of God in heaven? There is a palace that God created, a spiritual world. We have to understand, when God created the universe, he created heavens and earth. And we here on earth, most human beings only see the physical universe. But people who seek truth understand that there's a spiritual universe as well. The universe is made up of heaven and earth. And in the heavens, there is a palace of God where he's sitting on his throne room. He's sitting on his throne in his throne room, in the palace of the King of all kings, the God of all gods. He's called the God of Israel. Anyway, let's make a l'chaim here on my German beer. How are you guys doing? This is my happy hour. I'm sharing it with you. I'm not playing my guitar and singing right now on this happy hour because I want to have a discussion. I want to discuss truth. You see, I only became a rabbi because I started out as a truth seeker. When I was 8 years old, I saw the films of the Holocaust in Hebrew school. I went to 2 schools. I went to public school in Philadelphia. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I went to both public school, just like everybody else, and then after school, I had to go to another school 3 times a week. And actually Sunday morning, and then Mondays and Wednesdays after school, I had to go to another school for 2 hours. So I went to 2 schools, and in that Hebrew school, I learned Hebrew, I learned Jewish history, I learned the Torah, I learned the mitzvot, I learned halakha, I learned all kinds of things, especially the modern state of Israel, the miracles that God performed. And one of the things, when I was in 4th grade in Hebrew school, they showed us the films of the Holocaust. And one of the teachers who was in charge of arranging the whole, organizing the whole ordeal of showing children the films of the Holocaust, a very sensitive thing, a decision made by the principal of the school, whose name was Manfred Moskoff, who was a history teacher in public school, but he also was the principal of our Hebrew school, which was called Beth Emeth, which literally means the house of truth. So from kindergarten till 7th grade, I went to two schools. And this Hebrew school, I was 2 years in kindergarten because I started so young that when everybody else graduated kindergarten and went into first grade, I had to repeat kindergarten because I was too young to go to first grade. So I started very young in the kindergarten. There's me and one other kid were too young to go in because instead of starting at the age of 5, we started at the age of 4. So I spent 2 years in kindergarten. I flunked kindergarten. What a genius I am. I actually flunked kindergarten. Anyway, so the point that I'm making here is that at the time when the teacher who organized the film, that imagine having to make that decision, the principal of the school, to make that decision that we're going to show the children the film of the Holocaust, where you see the Jews being bulldozed, dead bodies, emaciated, dead Jewish bodies being bulldozed, piled up in huge piles and being bulldozed into giant mass graves, or seeing severed heads in a giant bucket, severed heads. I mean, I've never, till this day, that picture is not seen. I haven't seen it. Only in fourth grade, on that film that we saw, a bucket of severed heads. That image is etched in my mind forever. And so you see, every time I saw the images of being an 8-year-old child watching the films of your people. These are Jews. My father escaped Nazi Germany. My father is a refugee from Nazi Germany. And when I was 8 years old, I never thought about it that much. My father's mother spoke English with a very thick German accent. And I never thought about, until they showed us those films when I was in fourth grade. I want to explain to you the impact that it had on me. It was more impactful on me than most of the other kids. And I think because I was a precocious kid and I understood very well what was happening. And I imagined myself being there, actually. I remember as a child, 8 years old, till this day, I can see myself sitting in that auditorium, watching the film of the Holocaust, seeing all those Nazis and seeing Hitler speaking. And he wasn't just speaking, he was ranting and raving. He was always angry. He was always arousing the people with anger. Those Jews. It's all because of those Jews that Germany has suffered such. We must take our country back. Sure, a lot of people. Well, I'm not going to the whole policy. Trump was a very good president for Israel. I'm not going all into the politics of nowadays. I'm strictly discussing who I am as a truth seeker, why I became a truth seeker, and why I became a rabbi at the age of, I started studying to be a rabbi at the age of 23. Actually, at the age of 21, I started studying to be a rabbi. 22. In between the age of 21 and 23, I started really researching Judaism. I didn't just research Judaism because I was a truth seeker. I still am a truth seeker. I always was a truth seeker. But I was on a research project from the time I was 8 years old, and I saw the films of the Holocaust. I began a personal research project, and I asked myself two basic questions. Is there a God who created the universe, or is there not a God? Is Darwin right? Is Darwinism true, that the origin of species? Okay, Darwin only talked about the origin of species. He didn't speak about the origin of the universe, but it's clear that it was based on atheism because he was giving an explanation of how life came about on Earth without needing to say that God put life on Earth. So Darwinism is clearly an antithesis to the Jewish Bible. So when I was 8 years old and I saw the films of the Holocaust in Hebrew school, and when I was learning in public school, I went to an elementary school called Salas Cohen in Northeast Philadelphia. Solomon Salas Cohen. So here I am in Hebrew school down the road from Salas Cohen. My school was about 6 blocks away from my Hebrew school was about 6 blocks away on the same street, actually, on Bustleton Avenue. My Hebrew school was also on Bustleton Avenue. It was at Bustleton and Unruh, was Beth Emet, the House of Truth. And remember, the name of my synagogue where I went to Hebrew school was called Beth Emeth. Beth means the house of. Emeth is truth. Emet is truth. And in order to get to truth, a person has to really sacrifice being popular, because you might not agree with a lot of people are not going to agree with you once you reach the conclusions of the truths that you discovered in your personal research project of seeking truth. So that's what I was from the time I was 8 years old, fourth grade, and I learned in elementary school and public school that human beings are descended from ape people, which they called Neanderthal man. And they showed, in the history books, even in the history books they had it, the history of mankind, coming from ape, ape man, ape man. Yeah. So based on Darwinism, Hitler wrote in his book, Mein Kampf, he based his theory, Hitler wrote a book called Mein Kampf, My Struggle, and in there he explains his philosophy and what he believed. This is what he writes. He believes in Darwinism, the law of the jungle. Human beings are descended from ancient ape people, and the Jews are more ape-like. Now, he said clearly that the Jews are more primitive than all the other peoples. Can you imagine the greatest scientists in history? Many of them were Jews. The Jewish people have a much higher proportion of of our people, percentage-wise. We've produced more Nobel Prize winners in science and literature and art and music and all of the advanced arts and education and academia. The Jews have always excelled, have been the cream of the crop throughout history. And nevertheless, the people believed that when Hitler said the Jews are vermin, are parasites, and we're ape people and we're snakes, they believed that. They actually believed it. They believed that we're more primitive than everybody else. Ape people. Ooh, ooh. Yeah, we're ape people. I'm a gorilla. I mean, if you would see the hair on my back, you would see I'm very much gorilla-like. I have hair on my back like a silverback. Yeah. Anyway, I was actually born a fighter too. If you look at my baby picture, I'm like this. This is my baby picture. This is my baby picture. I'm ready to fight. I'm coming out for a fight. But look, I learned to be tolerant of idiots and people who believe in lies, especially the ones who think they're so righteous. The social justice warriors are so righteous. I'm not going into politics now. I don't want to discuss current events. I'm basically explaining to you, my friends and family, how I became a rabbi. And why I became a rabbi is because I became a truth seeker at the age of 8, when I saw the films of the Holocaust in 4th grade, and I was a precocious kid, and I understood that my father was a refugee from Nazi Germany. My bubby Irma spoke English with a very thick German accent. Yeah. So let's make a l'chaim on my German beer, because we're here at my beer garden having a happy hour. So you got to get happy with me, people. See, this is called a chamsa. Yeah, see that? It's called a chamsa. And what that is, that's a hand with 5 digits. Okay, it looks like it has 2 thumbs. I don't really like this one so much. It just happens to be the one I'm wearing right now. Anyway, I would like to get a new one. But anyway, it represents a hand. And the hand has 5 digits, you see. And God created good and evil, and it's 5 versus 5, you see. And that's the 10 commandments. There's 5 and 5. There's 10 sfirot in the Kabbalah, 5 corresponding to 5. The five, because there's 5 digits on each hand, and that's the good versus the evil. The good is on the right, the evil's on the left. But I'm not getting into politics now because I don't want to discuss politics. I want to discuss truth. Now, if you're going to discuss politics, there's also truth. Truth applies in every field of discussion, that whatever you can discuss, whether you're talking politics, you're talking science, you're talking sports, there's truth and there's lies. It doesn't matter what you're talking about, But anyway, let's make a l'chaim on my German beer in the beer garden. To life, l'chaim. So anyway, I was telling you, let's first make a l'chaim before I start telling you something else. I'm telling you, once I get started, I don't know how to stop. Somebody stop that man. Stop that man. I'm telling you. He just doesn't know when to stop. To life, l'chaim. Yeah, light up the smoke. Because he's quick with a joke. Or he'll light up your smoke. But there's somewhere that he'd rather be. Sing us a song, you're the piano man. Sing us a song tonight. Well, we're all in the mood for a wedding. And you got us feeling, Billy Joel. He was Jewish, both parents Jewish. They're actually German Jews, not religious at all. A lot of German Jews were not religious. They were scientists. They were educated. They believed in Darwinism. So a lot of the German Jews were atheists. So they didn't have a problem. In fact, a lot of the German Jews just didn't understand, why the Nazis hated Jews so much. They felt just as German. They didn't feel Jewish at all. A lot of the German Jews really didn't feel Jewish at all. They felt German. An overwhelming majority of the German Jews felt more German than they felt Jewish. And that's true. I mean, I've done research about the Jews of Germany, and it's true. An overwhelming majority of the Jews of Germany prior to World War II, prior to the Holocaust, they felt more German. They identified more as Germans than they identified as Jews. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, my friends. To life, l'chaim. Most people are not aware of this fact. It's a historic fact. Let's talk about historic facts. What's an historic fact? You can't say what's a historic fact, because even though it's an H sound, but actually it's a debatable issue whether you have to say an historic fact or a historic fact. That's a debatable issue as well. But that's only man-made. Grammar is a set of man-made rules of how to speak the words properly. But those are man-made rules. See, I'm interested in truth that is not man-made. When I talk about being a truth seeker, I'm looking for truth that is not man-made. Because man can make things. And man can create his own truths. So, it's true that there's a certain way to make glass, right? And there's different ways to make glass. Now, if you don't know the truth of how to make a glass, and as far as I know, they make glass out of sand. I don't know if there's another way to make glass other than making it out of sand, the kind of glass that breaks when you drop it. But, of course, not all glass breaks, and now they have bulletproof glass for many, many decades already. But anyway, let's not get involved in that. I'm talking about how I became a rabbi. That's what I'm discussing with you now. And I really would like to debate with you, but we're running out of time. Because if I just go on and on and on, I can just go on and on and on and never stop. And you'll eventually get bored. And if you're still watching me now, we're 18 minutes and 34 seconds into this. If you're still watching me now, I'm really glad that I haven't yet bored you to, I'm boring myself at this point already. So let's make another time. I cannot give a boring discussion. If I feel that it's boring already, I will stop. God forbid, because I would never want to sit in. I remember as a kid, in all of my classes, I just hated having boring teachers. I hated sitting in on boring lectures. And I've been a scholar. I've been sitting in on lectures my whole life. My whole life I've been giving lectures for the last many, many decades. Well, not many, many decades. I've been giving lectures now for, I don't know, when I started giving lectures. 25 years ago, maybe already. Maybe more. But I cannot stand to sit in a lecture where the person giving the lecture is just boring the hell out of me. I'll just start doing something else, I'll make pretend I'm taking notes. Many times I'm sitting in a lecture, and if the professor or the rabbi is boring, I'll just make pretend I'm taking notes. I'll look up, I'll nod my head, and like I'm writing down, but actually I'm writing down other things. Other things that I'm thinking about, things that are truths that I'm pondering. But many times, I didn't mean to, because I'm not going to be bored by the person. I'm not going to just sit there and waste my time listening to a boring lecture. So let's make it l'chaim. To life, l'chaim. So now that, so we can discuss, but it's getting late. I'm really going to end it really soon. But I want to discuss on my next show, my next happy hour, Philly boy in Israel, Ronnie J. This is Ronnie J's Bar and Grill. This is what we do at Ronnie J's Bar and Grill. We get happy. We make a l'chaim on our German beer. We don't always have German beer. I mean, we did have Corona beer the other day. Anyway, because it's Corona against Corona, you see. People don't understand. The whole Kaddish prayer, the prayer of Kaddish, it's the highest level prayer that a Jew can say. You need 10 men, actually. We'll talk about men and women, but whether a woman can join a minyan, it's not really. You need 10 men. You need 10 Jewish men from the age of 13 bar mitzvah to have a quorum, a minyan, and then you can say the Kaddish prayer. Now, the Kaddish prayer is the holiest prayer in Judaism, and it's in Aramaic, and the sages wanted us to say it in Aramaic because Aramaic is the language of the Sitra Achra. Now, in Kabbalah, there's a concept, a name of evil. There's good. Once again, I was saying there's the 5, which is good, the 5, which is evil. God created good and evil. As God says in his Torah, I place before you this day good versus evil, light versus darkness, life versus death. And these things it's a constant struggle of every human being, is to constantly be a winner. We had, see, Lama Natseach Mizmor David. Lama Natseach has 2 connotations. It can mean a maestro, the master of the orchestra, or it can mean a winner. Lama Natseach, the one who wins. King David was a winner. He was the maestro. Lama Natseach Mizmor David. And he said, King David said, that I am an ani, ve'evion. I am I'm a poor soul. I'm a poor, wretched person. King David, the great King David, who is the king of all of the earth. King David was the most powerful king on planet Earth of all human civilization when King David was the king. He was the most powerful of all the kings. He destroyed the mighty Goliath with just one little slingshot. Hit him right in the middle of the forehead, according to how we understand the verses. King David feared no one. It says in the Bible that he could kill a lion with his bare hands. He could kill a bear with his bare hands. King David. And he said, Ani ve'evyon anoichi. He said, I am a poor, impoverished person, a poor, impoverished person. I am a nobody, I am a nothing. And he understood, because when your heart stops beating, can you make it start beating again? No. If your heart were to start beating right now, and that's possible, it can happen. Nobody has any guarantee that this beat of the heart won't be your last beat, that this breath won't be your last breath. Nobody has any guarantee. Count the number of breaths you've taken from the time that you were born. 12 breaths a minute, approximately. A human being breathes approximately on the average of 12 breaths a minute. So just make the calculation. Your age, how many minutes you've been alive, how many breaths you have taken. The number of breaths you will take in the course of a lifetime, from the time you're born to the time you die, has an exact number. And you never know when this breath that you take right now can be your last breath. And therefore, don't waste these breaths. Don't waste this life. It's too precious to waste. Do something positive with your life. Be kind to people. Love people. Tolerate people. Love all of God's creatures, all of the animals on the planet. They're all beautiful in their own way. Even the snake has a purpose. That's a good purpose. King David was saved in the cave by a spider. And spiders are an amazing creature. Their emotion sensors are so highly developed that When you see a spider, if you try to get near him, he senses the motion, and he automatically will escape you. It's very hard to catch a young, strong spider. Old ones are easier. Age takes its toll. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned with that now. God has let me go up to the mountaintop, and I have seen the promised land. And I'm not fearing any man, for mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Glory, glory, hallelujah. So that's what I'm saying, you see, my friends and family. Our sages enacted the holiest prayer of Kaddish is in Aramaic. Why did they? It's not in Hebrew. Well, it's Hebrew and Aramaic. Aramaic is very similar to Hebrew. So you see, Aramaic is actually the mirror of Hebrew. Aramaic is the language of the Sitra Achra, the language of the evil demons, the language of the evil angels, the dark angels, the fallen angels, who want to destroy you, who want to steal your faith from you. Aramaic is their language. They speak Aramaic. So the sages enacted the holiest prayer that we say in the language of the demons, the Aramaic language. It's called Targum. The Aramaic language is the language of the Sitra Achra. So it says, and even in Shulchan Aruch, there are three opinions that the sages, the ancient Jewish sages, had three different opinions why the Kaddish prayer was enacted to be said in Aramaic. Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei rabo. Hebrew would be yiskadel v'yiskadesh shemei rabo. Those two words are actually Hebrew, according to some say. The Chafetz Chaim and the Mishnah Berurah paskin that yiskadel v'yiskadesh, not yiskadal v'yiskadash. It's a difference of opinion on that, whether those two words are also Aramaic. But those two words come from the verse directly. And therefore the Chafetz Chaim and the Mishnah Berurah said, you should say, Yiskadel v'yiskadesh, Shemei Rabo. You see, Shemei is Aramaic. Rabo is Aramaic for Gadol. Rabo means great. Gadol in Hebrew is great. Rabo in Aramaic is great. So the prayer is in Aramaic. Tushbechoso v'nechamoso. Da'amiron bi'olama. Olama is Aramaic for olam, you see. So the whole Kaddish prayer is said in Aramaic. Why? Because that's the language of the Sitra Achra, which is the Kabbalah words for the other side. It literally means the other side. Sitra Achra, it's Aramaic. The other side, because you see, though the other side is just the same, you can't tell my dream is real. That's a Neil Young song where he sings about the other side is just the same. So you see, Baruch Mordechai and Arur Haman, there's a mitzvah to drink and get drunk on Purim, because Purim is the holiest day of the year. See, people think that Yom Kippurim is the holiest day of the year. But Yom Kippurim is only a Yom Kippurim, a Yom Kimo Purim. Yom Kippurim is a day which is like Purim, because Purim is actually the holiest day of the year. It's a day when you get drunk and you thank Hashem for saving you, the Jewish people, because if Hashem didn't save the Jewish people in ancient Persia, we wouldn't be here as a nation, as a Jewish nation, you see. So therefore, the day that God saved the Jewish people from the ancient Persian Empire, where Haman was the viceroy and he got the king Achashverosh to agree to kill all the Jews, to assassinate, to exterminate all of the Jews over 2,000 years ago in ancient Persia. And God saved us by the hand of Mordechai and Esther, Queen Esther and Mordechai. And therefore, blessed is Mordechai, Baruch Mordechai, and Arur Haman, and cursed is Haman. Those have the same gematria, the same numerical value in the Hebrew letters. 502. And therefore you have to, it's a mitzvah ad lo yoda, it's a mitzvah to get drunk on Purim. Ad lo yoda, bein Baruch Mordechai, the Arur Haman, until a person doesn't know the difference between good and evil. To life, Because in its essence, good and evil come from God. There is no difference between good and evil. God created everything, both good and evil. Is God evil? How does the good God, who is pure good, create evil? That will be for our next show. Our next discussion, we will discuss how does God, who is good, create evil? And make no mistake, God created good and evil. I place before you this day good versus evil, life versus death, light versus darkness. Choose life so that you shall live. It says it right in the 5 books of Moses. Make no mistake, God created both good and evil. So the question that we're going to deal with on the next show is, how does God, who is pure good, pure love, pure mercy, how does he create evil? How do we understand that? Why does God allow the Holocaust to happen? Why does God allow so many evil things? And not only that, not just people kill people. Storms kill people. Earthquakes kill people. Volcanoes kill people. Well, people who had to live next to a volcano, I guess they had no choice. Why would anyone want to live in a valley next to a volcano? Okay, well, it hasn't erupted in 100 years, but it might erupt soon. You never know. Anyway, earthquakes, tornadoes, lightning sometimes strikes a person and kills them. So God kills people all the time directly. It's called an act of God in the insurance company's contracts. An act of God. Someone got killed by an act of God. He was just riding his car down the highway, and then a tornado came and swept up his car into the tornado, and he no longer lives anymore because he couldn't survive that. And therefore, not just man kills man, and people just don't die of natural causes. Well, what about dying of a natural cause? You died, you got old. God did that. God makes you old, and God kills you when you die. And that's what the verse says. Hashem is the Mechaya Umemit in the Shemona Esrei Tefillah. God gives life, and God takes life, and that's what the Jewish prayer says at the funeral of a loved one. Hashem Natan v'Hashem Lokach. God gave and God took away. Yehi Shem Hashem Mevorach Me'atov Yado. God's name shall be blessed.